Hello, I'm SuYeon Gwak, a graduate student studying in New York University, and I'm majoring in psychology, and I have been interested in studying about the multicultural acceptance in Korea. So we studied about the topic about the effects of familism values and individualism values on multicultural acceptance in Korea. So to explain the introduction, the background of our study, the number of foreigners residing in Korea was 4.9% of the total population in 2023. Considering that a multicultural society is generally recognized when the proportion of foreigners exceeds 5%, Korean society is now at the beginning of multicultural society. Accordingly, Korean society needs to emphasize multicultural acceptance that recognizes and respects cultural diversity. The multicultural acceptance means willingly accepting the change to a multicultural society, recognizing individuals or groups with different racial and cultural backgrounds as members of our society, and cooperating with them to coexist harmoniously. It also implies the need for mutual acceptance and adaptation that recognize the value of cultural diversity and promotes fair participation. In Korea, multicultural acceptance is also currently growing compared to the past, as the cultural diversity is growing in Korea compared to the past. And on the other hand, for members of a multicultural society with diverse cultural backgrounds to coexist harmoniously, it is necessary to understand how the values of a society affect their behavior. Familism values prioritize the family as the fundamental social unit, considering the family more important than that of the individual, and continuously making more efforts to maintain a family unit. On the other hand, contrary to the familism values, individualism values see the individual as the basic unit of society, prioritizing individual's goal and personal achievement. So we decided to divide individualism values based on the trendies, and we divided it into two dimensions. Trendies divides individualism values into two dimensions. The first one is horizontal individualism values, and the second one is vertical individualism values. Horizontal individualism values emphasize the importance of each person's individuality and social equality, while vertical individualism values involve gaining satisfaction through competition and personal achievement. According to previous studies on the relationship between familism values, individualism values, and multicultural acceptance, higher familism values are associated with a greater tendency to exclude multiculturalism. Additionally, higher horizontal individualism values correlate with greater multicultural acceptance, while higher vertical individualism values are correlated with lower multicultural acceptance. So based on this kind of background of the study, we got two purposes for this study. The purposes of this study are as follows, indicated on the slide. First, the purpose of the study is to examine whether there are differences in familism values, individualism values, and multicultural acceptance according to gender and age. So we decided to compare the young age group and old age group, and female and male. And for the second one, we wanted to investigate the influence of familism values and individualism values on multicultural acceptance. So for the methodology, we first collected the data from the online survey. The data was collected from the survey of 448 students at Seoul Cyber University from August 29, 2022 to September 19, 2022. So we used different scale for each different definitions. For the multicultural acceptance, we used the total of 25 items based on the Korean Multicultural Acceptance Scale. The response format was a 5-point Likert scale with higher score indicating higher multicultural acceptance. The reliability coefficient of the scale was Gwak, and alpha was 0.94. That was the result. We used that scale. And for the Familism value scale, we used a total of 10 items based on the scale constructed by Lee. The response format was a 5-point Likert scale with higher scores indicating higher Familism values. The reliability coefficient of this scale was Gwak's. Alpha was 0.77. And lastly, for the individualism value scale, we used 16 items on individualism values from the 32-item scale developed by Triandes, used by Jinjin. And this scale consists of 2 subfactors, 8 items on vertical individualism values, and 8 items of horizontal individualism values. As we divided horizontal individualism values and vertical individualism values, we used different items for each values. And the response format was a 5-point Likert scale, same as other Familism value and multicultural acceptance scale. And a higher score indicated higher vertical individualism values and horizontal individual values. The reliability coefficient of vertical individualism values was Gwak. Alpha was 0.72, and for horizontal individualism values, it was Gwak. Alpha was 0.85. So we used SPSS version 27 for the analysis of the study, and each of these were used for analysis when using SPSS 27. First, frequency analysis was conducted to examine the general characteristics of the research subjects, and Gwak's coefficient was calculated to verify the reliability of the measurements tool. And also t-test was conducted to examine whether there were differences in Familism values, individualism values, and multicultural acceptance according to gender and age. So, and multiple regression analysis was conducted to examine the effects of Familism values and individualism values on multicultural acceptance. So t-test was conducted to investigate the first purpose of the study, and the multiple regression analysis was used to study the second purpose of the study. So we had 2 different purposes, and based on each different purpose, we got 2 different results. First, we investigated differences in Familism values, individualism values, and multicultural acceptance according to gender and age. And as I explained in the methodology, t-test was conducted. And t-test was conducted to examine differences in Familism values, individualism values, and multicultural acceptance according to gender and age. First, as a result of examining differences by gender, men were found to be statistically significantly higher in familism values and political individualism values than women. And familism values were statistically significantly higher in men compared to women, and political individualism values were also statistically significantly higher in men compared to women. Also, second, as a result of examining the differences in familism values, individualism values, and multicultural acceptance according to age, significant differences were found in familism values and multicultural acceptance based on age. As you see, the T results and P value, the familism values were statistically significantly higher among those aged 40 and older compared to those in their 20s and 30s. While multicultural acceptance was statistically significantly higher among those in their 20s and 30s compared to those aged 40 and older. So these kind of results indicate that familism values are more emphasized among older age group, while the individualism is more emphasized in younger age group, such as like 20s and 30s. So we could see the differences between the age group, differences in multicultural acceptance based on the different age group. And for the second purpose of the study, we investigated the effects of familism values and individualism values on multicultural acceptance. And as I mentioned before, multiple regression analysis was conducted to examine the impact of familism values and individualism values on multicultural acceptance. So this study analyzed gender and economic status as control variables in the first stage. And in the second stage, political individualism values, horizontal individualism values, and familism values were added as independent variables and analyzed. So the analysis results show that familism values and political individualism values had significant negative effects in their 20s and 30s, which means that 20s and 30s had emphasized more like individualities rather than like family-oriented stuffs. And among those aged 40 and older, familism values had a significant negative effect, while horizontal individualism values had a significant positive effect. So the purpose of this study was to examine whether there were differences in familism values and individualism values and multicultural acceptance according to age and gender. And furthermore, we sought to investigate the influence of familism values and individualism values on multicultural acceptance. So based on the results, we got a discussion as follows. First, men had higher familism values and political individualism values than women. And also 20s and 30s had lower familism values and higher multicultural acceptance compared to 40s and older. So we emphasize that practical programs on multicultural acceptance and values should develop specialized programs for each gender and age group. For example, we can provide the education programs to 40s and older group to teach them how it is important to accept the multicultural diversity stuffs. And we can also let the 20s and 30s young age group, let them know how it is important to like take care of the family, stuff like that. And second, among 20s and 30s, Lower familism values and lower vertical individualism values were associated with higher multicultural acceptance. Among those in the 40s and older, lower familism values and higher horizontal individualism values were correlated with higher multicultural acceptance. So to improve multicultural acceptance and facilitate harmonious coexistence among individuals with diverse backgrounds in Korean society, policies and practical measures emphasizing horizontal individualism should be established so that we can kind of like expand horizontal individualism to Korean society, which is helpful for like accepting the multicultural acceptance steps. So this was the conclusion discussion part of the our study. We got a result and discussion like this, and thank you for listening to the presentation.